Hopefully this will work. Okay, so sensation and perception starts on like the third page here. Let's talk about, I kind of talk about them at the same time. Knowing the difference between sensation and perception. Sensation is all of our senses. All the information coming into each of our, how many do we have? 7. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so we got like seeing, touching, tasting, hearing, smelling, but then we have knowing where our body parts are in space, which is what? Kinesthetic, and our sense of balance. You've seen it as an answer choice in some questions. Vestibular, okay? So is that on here somewhere? Yes. So it's number 4. We have our 2 other senses here. We have kinesthetic. It says like knowing our body parts in relationship to the other. And then vestibular is our sense of balance. Okay, so yes, we got more than just that. Main parts of the test are going to be when talking about sensation is vision, like seeing and hearing. There might be some questions about smelling, but the only thing that you would need to know is like does anyone know another word for smelling? Olfactory or olfaction. Okay, so that would tell you the answer. It's like something, J smells. And then the answer choice would say something about olfaction or olfactory. So I don't know if I have that written down anywhere. No, but okay. Yes, somewhere. Like on number 3. Well, that's taste and touch. There's no smell there. Oh, wait, here we go. No, I don't see it. Never mind. Words are like messing me up. You see it? 3B? D. Yes. Smells based on the chemicals, and then olfactory bulb, just the keyword olfactory, is going to be your smelling. Okay, and then there is something about taste, just the 4 different types of tastes: sweet, sour, salt, and bitter. And, they used to say like, oh, the parts of the tongue are like, this part of the tongue is for sweet, and this part of the tongue is for salty, and this part of the tongue is for bitter. That's not true. Like all taste buds are all over the tongue, and they all taste different things. And they all taste the same. Like it's not like there's different taste buds for different tastes. That is a myth that we used to teach. I remember learning that in like biology. That's not true. That's not true at all. Each section of the tongue tastes different. That's not true at all, because like you put sour on any parts of your tongue, you're going to taste sour. Yeah. Like it's not like, oh, and then it tastes different. No. Okay, and then perception is how do we process that information. So we'll talk about the laws of perception later on, but let's get into more about sensation. Anyone remember what transduction means?
Converting light waves into neural.
Okay, converting, that's just typically for the eyes, converting light waves into neural messages, but transduction can happen for all the senses. So like what is sound?
Waves.
The vibration of sound waves. And so it's turning sound waves into neural messages. Whatever, it's basically turning some sort of energy, whether it be light or vibration, into neural messages. Where does transduction happen for sight? It doesn't happen in the brain. It happens in your retina. Remember, the retina is the only part of your body besides the brain that can process information, because it used to be part of your brain. Remember, in utero, a chunk of your brain broke off and became your retinas, so it can process information. Okay, of course, can we process it is the idea. We talked about this. Gosh, did we talk about sensation? I feel like we talked about sensation, and we talked about when we talked about like the neuron. Does the neuron fire? Can you hear? Can you smell? Can you taste? Absolute threshold and difference threshold. Okay, absolute threshold is when you can sense it at least 50% of the time or more, 50% of the time or greater. So can you taste, like I add a piece of salt, like one little flake of salt to your food. If you can taste it 50% of the time or more, then that's just enough salt to reach absolute threshold. If it is below 50, then it's considered a subliminal message. And then difference threshold, also known as the just noticeable difference, is can you tell a difference between the two things? I forget who I used per class, but I added rocks to someone's hand.
Oh, you love Logan.
You have to use someone. Okay, so yeah, I think I did use summer because you're right.
It was like you're just like.
Oh, okay. That's
So
true.
I think you like touched her again.
Yeah, I think I probably did something different for class. I probably should have used the same example for class. Come review time. Yeah, so like I like touch Summer. It's like, can you feel that? It's like, yes. Okay. Well, can you feel the difference of like pressure? Maybe I touch her and then I just add a little bit more pressure, and whenever she's like, okay, yeah, that's more pressure, then it's the same. It's the same stimulus, but the quantity of stimulus, the amount of salt, the amount of pressure, the amount of sound, the amount of seeing something light is different. It's like, can you notice a difference? And so I want you to think of like going to check your eyes. It's like can you see the big E? Sure. Absolute threshold. And then they change the lenses on you. Which one's better? 1 or 2? 2 or 3? 3 or 4? They're seeing if you can tell a difference between those two things. If you can tell, oh, 1 is a whole lot clearer than 2. That's difference threshold. And then it comes along, difference threshold comes along with this law, Weber's law. Do you remember Weber's law?
Percent.
It's not about the amount change. It's about the percent change. Do you remember the two pictures of like, there was a skinny girl and there was a larger girl? It's like they both lose 5 pounds. Who are you going to notice it on more? The skinny girl. Because 5 pounds is like half her weight. The fat girl, larger, rounder, full-figured. The full-figure girl, she would have to lose like half of her weight for you to notice. If it took half of the skinny girl's weight for you to notice, it would take the same percentage, different pounds, but same percentage, which is why you notice a haircut a whole lot more on like Jay than you would notice on Abby's hair, because you have like 3 feet of hair. He's got 2 inches of hair, not even an inch of hair. And so if he cut his hair, you would notice because the percent change is different. He cut off half of his hair if he cuts off an inch. If you cut an inch off a long girl's hair, you wouldn't even notice. Okay. Signal detection theory, we talked about like what are some things that get in the way of us sensing something. And then we talked about like, is it on the list? No, it isn't. It is, do we have like a list here? Is it important enough that, okay, it is important enough to have like kind of a list. Are we like motivated? Is it like life or death? Are we motivated to see it? Do we expect to see it? What's our level of fatigue? Are we tired? And there's one more. Our motivation, our expectation. Do we expect to see it? And I feel like there's one more. Oh, and our experience level.
Oh, wasn't that like the 9/11 one?
Yeah, and it was like his first day that he was doing air traffic control, and his experience level was nothing. And probably, you know, it was like the first terrorist attack in a long time, especially like on our soil. And so the expectation of something like that happening, not really high. Yeah, like I think probably New York airports now have a higher expectation than they did, so they're now more likely to see something. Of course, they're really busy airports, so their fatigue level, their tiredness level is probably a whole lot higher than just like little, Hooks Airport, like on student airline type of thing. Okay, sensory adaptation, getting in the water is just fine. Why do we stop feeling things after a while? No, give me the scientific reason.
Oh, the stimulation.
What? Habituation is a great way to say that, but why do we become habituated to it? Why do we know, like we get in the water and, ooh, it's really cold. And then we're in it for a while and it seems to warm up. It's not. The water temperature isn't changing, but we no longer sense it. We become adapted to it. We become habituated to it because of something about this guy. Yeah, it fires less frequently when with unchanging stimulus. And so if it's sound, think of it as a mom. After a while, like their baby is like crying. And you're sitting there at a restaurant and you're like, oh my gosh, how does this baby stop crying? Like, it's so annoying. Doesn't the parent hear it? No, the parent is not really hearing it. You know, the kid that has like sitting there at like the dinner table and they've got like a fork and they're like, what is going on? Someone parent that child. And it's like the parents don't hear it because their annoying kid is an unchanging stimulus. And eventually their parent brains stop firing. And then they just don't hear it. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the eye. So I don't know if you can tell, this eye is someone that is laying down like this. Okay? So here is like eyebrow, nose, and then mouth. Beautiful. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Well, someone asked me the other day, I showed them a brain scan of like schizophrenia, and they're like, how can you tell the view? Like, well, look where the cerebellum is. Cerebellum's always the back bottom. So if like that will tell you like, and typically brain scans are going to be like of the brain like this, like that, because you're laying in an MRI. You're not going to be laying in the MRI face down. Like they're not going to put you like in the little MRI, like laying on your face. So yeah. Okay. So if you were to touch your eye, you shouldn't because your hands are really dirty. You're going to touch the cornea. What color is the cornea? It's clear. It's a protective layer on the outside of your eye. Okay. That's where the eyelashes like fall. Technically, this is something in front of your cornea. It's just a layer of tears all the time. Probably more, closer to AP tests. But typically, there's tears all the time. And then we got the pupil. What color is the pupil? Black. Because it is the hole. It's an actual hole in your eye. There's nothing there. Technically, there is no color because it's just space. It's darkness. It's emptiness.
Really?
Really, really.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's black because there's
like no point.
no. It's a hole to your eye, and so the iris, the color, the hazel, the brown, the blue, the green, whatever color your eyes are, it is a muscle that'll open and close, making that hole bigger or smaller. So if something shines the light in your eye, like
it allows light to come in.
It allows light to come in. That's a lot of light. It's someone shining a flashlight in your eye. So the color part. What's the color part called?
Iris.
The iris is going to be like, that's too much, and it's going to tighten to make that hole smaller to let less light in because it's too bright. Of course, as soon as you turn off the lights, your iris is like, I need more light to see, so it expands, letting more light in. Also, when you're nervous, scared, your sympathetic nervous system kicks in because the bear's chasing you. You need to see all the possible ways to escape the bear. I need to see really well. Your iris is going to expand, allowing your pupil to get bigger so more light can come in. What? Or when you like someone, when you're in love. When you're in love, your pupils dilate so you can see them better. So you can kind of tell by looking at someone like how big their pupils are, how well they're, like how much they're in love. Okay. Iris, we talked about color parts of the eye. The lens is right behind the iris and the pupil, because the pupil and iris are kind of in the same, like it's the same, like that's not anything. That's the same right there. Controlling the not anything. And the lens is literally a lens. It looks like an eyeglass lens. And it does adjust. The lens does change shape to try to focus. Of course, sometimes, your lens is not focusing the light in the right spot, which is why you might need glasses. Okay. So the retina is the back of the eye, containing the rods and the cones. Rods is good for night vision, for black and white. Cones see color. What's your best point of vision? Fovea. A couple of you got to the fovea question on today's mock. It wasn't a full mock test. But it was, practice. Did anyone remember like what the question was talking about? Like night vision, something, rods, cones.
Yeah, it was talking about like the darkness.
Yes. So rods are not sensitive to the dark. It's hard to see in the dark. And so, no, what was the question? Wasn't that?
I can look at it.
Yeah, but it was like cones are in the fovea. They're they're centralized in the fovea. There's no rods in the fovea. There was a question, it was like, are there some rods in the fovea? Are there no rods in the fovea? There's no rods in the fovea. It's all cones. Okay, and it's your best vision. Okay, so optic nerve leaves the eye, goes to what part of your brain? What part of the brain? The brain part. The main brain part. It's going to go to your occipital lobe. And if you see this term ganglionic cells, let's just know that those are eye cells. There's a whole bunch of cells besides rods and cones. There's ganglionic cells. There's something called bipolar cells. But we don't need to really focus. But if you see this term, it's not going to ask you, what are ganglionic cells? Just it might narrow it down. Be like, these are, it might help you narrow it down. A lot of the test questions, there are just, if you know like one term, even if it's not the right, like it's just to help narrow it down. There was a question about aggression today.
Yeah.
That it's like you knew 3 of the 5 answer choices, and if you know your terms, you know they're not the 3. It was like social inhibition, social facilitation, and no, it was locus of control. If you know those, you know it's not those. So process of elimination. Okay, but with that optic nerve, when it leaves our eye, there are no rods and cones there, which is why we have a blind spot, because there's no rods and cones there to help us see, because it's a nerve there instead, the optic nerve. Okay, moving on. So near and farsightedness, your retina is either too close or too far. And so they have to, like, nearsightedness means you can see what? You can see near. You are near sighted. You can see near. Far-sighted means you can see far. Most people are nearsighted. Like they can see near. Do you remember what side, if your eye is too big or too small, if you're nearsighted?
Small.
I believe it's too small. Yeah, your eyes are too like short. Like it ends too soon. And so if you are nearsighted, you've got small eyes, short. I hate to use the word short because short typically means here, but I'm thinking about deep. They don't go far back. While if you're farsighted, they're shallow. That's a good one. You're farsighted, your eye is too long, it's too deep. It's, what's the opposite of shallow? Deep? Too deep.
So how does eye surgery?
Okay, eye surgery can't change the shape of your eye, but they can change the shape of your lens. And the lens is what focuses on the retina. So it's like, oh, your retina is too close or too far away. Let me reshape it to where it focuses and the exact distance that I need it to be shaped. Yeah. Okay. I don't think, I doubt it's going to be on the test, but visual agnosia. This agnosia means that there's inability to perceive something. So I've seen visual agnosia, like you can see, you are not blind. Your brain though cannot understand what it is seeing. It's shapes and colors, but I can't perceive you as a person or the background or whatever. But I've also heard of movement agnosia, which means you can't see moving things. You can't perceive them. They disappear. So think of a T-Rex. What, T-Rex can only see things that are moving? Is what I think we guessed in Jurassic Park. How do we even know that? You think there's fossils of eyes? No. I don't know. It's not a bone. It can't fossilize. So I don't know how we thought that. But they say that T-Rex can't see movement. So if you stand perfectly still, T-Rex can't see you. So like people that have movement agnosia, they have the eyes of a T-Rex. They can see like I am still, therefore they can see me. But as soon as I start walking, I disappear. And then I reappear wherever I stop. I don't know how that works. But yeah. And let's talk about colorblind. Are they colorblind? No, they're color deficient. They're not colorblind. What are they deficient in? They're cones, okay? So remember, there's 2 theories of why we see color. We don't know why we see color. There are 2 theories of why we see color. These are always tested. Always, always, always. Like movement agnosia, probably not on the test. Even like whether your eyes are too big or too small, probably not on the test. But color blindness, 100% will be on the test. That's guaranteed. Trichromatic theory says that we have 3 cones, 3 different types of cones, and they work together to see color. And this explains why people are colorblind. That's why it's a theory, because it's not like a law. We'd have to do some sort of surgeries on people and see and experiments. But the trichromatic theory explains color blindness. We are trichromatic. Colorblind people are dichromatic. Di being for two. And there's different types of color blindness because there's 3 different cones. So I guess you could be missing one of different ones for different people. The opponent process theory is another theory of why we see color. So, do you remember this was like every color has an opposite? Every color has do you remember how we started that American flag?
Yeah,
And then it went like white, but then we saw what?
green, black.
Yeah, we saw the opposite of whatever it was. That is called an after image. So a trichromatic theory explains color blindness, but it doesn't explain after image effects. While opponent process theory, talking about everything has an opposite, explains after images, but it doesn't explain why we are colorblind. So we are going to continue after school today with sensation and perception just for a little bit, about 30 minutes, and then we're going home. Have a good day. Yeah.